Why not the Christmas party? Timeline and witness accounts. Reconstructing the last normal evening. We begin, as all good investigations must, with what appeared normal. And there is something disquieting about normal in hindsight, the way it hardens into irony once everything that came after it is known. The Christmas party of December 23, 1996, occupies a peculiar space in this case. It was unremarkable enough that no one attending it that night could have predicted what would happen 3 days later. Yet it was also the last large gathering where the Ramsey family was observed by multiple unrelated witnesses in sustained, natural interaction. The genesis of this party reveals something worth examining. According to John Ramsey's 1998 deposition, the family had initially planned not to host their traditional Christmas party at all. Patsy had celebrated her 40th birthday with a surprise party in early December, a full celebration that left the household kind of partied out, as John described it. The plan was simple: skip the formal gathering, perhaps invite a couple of close friends over with their children, keep it intimate and low-key. The family was already stretched thin, preparing for their imminent departure to Charlevoix, Michigan, where they had a lakeside property and were planning a holiday retreat. But then came the call that changed the evening's trajectory. Bill Reynolds, who regularly served as Santa Claus at the Ramseys' annual parties, contacted the family with an unexpected opportunity. He explained that Charles Kuralt, the renowned journalist and CBS correspondent, was in Boulder working on a documentary. Reynolds suggested bringing Kuralt to the Ramsey home to film the party, framing it as a unique addition to his project about the Ramsey family and their business success. As John Ramsey later reflected, "One thing I always wondered was whether it was really Charles Kuralt." That hesitation, that small reflective doubt, is worth noting. It suggests uncertainty about the identity of the visitor, or perhaps uncertainty about the entire premise of the visit. Nevertheless, Patsy, who by all accounts was what John termed a born publicist and who enjoys that kind of thing, made the decision quickly. The party was hastily pulled together. What emerges from the witness accounts and the Ramseys' own recollections is a picture of compressed preparation. Patsy enlisted Linda Hoffman, a close friend and neighbor, to help her organize. According to Patsy's April 1997 interview with Boulder police, Linda came a little late that day and stayed through the late afternoon and evening getting ready for the party. Linda's daughter attended, but significantly, Linda's husband did not. Linda had driven herself and would drive home alone. The party itself would require catering, which John confirmed happened, and special touches: pre-made gingerbread houses from Safeway, industrial quantities of frosting, jelly, beans, M&Ms, gumdrops, the kind of setup that would occupy and entertain a large number of children for an extended period. The party began early, between 4:30 and 5:30 p.m., depending on the specific recollection, to accommodate Santa's schedule, who had multiple engagements that evening. This compressed timeline would prove significant when reconstructing the family's movements later in the evening. The guest list and atmosphere. The attendees list, as reconstructed from Patsy's April 1997 police interview, reveals the social and professional circles the Ramseys inhabited. The Whites, Fleet White and his wife Priscilla, along with their son Fleet White Jr., were close family friends. Fleet White worked in finance and represented the kind of peer relationship that characterizes upper-middle-class Boulder society. The extended White family was present. Don Paw, Patsy's father, attended. The Steins were there, Glenn and Susan Stein, along with their son Doug, and notably, Susan's mother and Glenn's mother. The Fernies attended. The Barnhills were present. Joe and Betty Barnhill, described as family friends of the Ramseys. There was also an unidentified man who arrived looking for the Barnhills. According to Patsy, she did not personally see him, but John reported that he let him in and showed him to the Barnhills. Don Pa also remembered him, this man being there, and reportedly invited him to eat something. This individual was never identified in the official investigation, and the casual, friendly manner in which he was absorbed into the gathering is noteworthy. A stranger integrated into the party without apparent tension or concern. The legal documents confirm that nothing out of the ordinary occurred at the party, and the Ramsey family appeared happy. But what does "appeared happy" mean in the context of a family under preparation for departure, hosting an unexpected party, with several young children present? It is a statement of external composure, not internal state, and it comes from observers who spent a few hours in the presence of the family, not observers who lived with them or understood the domestic rhythms of the house. The activities and duration. According to the recollections, the evening unfolded with structured, child-centered activities. There was dinner, catered, as was typical for the Ramseys' entertaining. Santa Claus and Mrs. Santa Claus attended and distributed gifts. As part of this gift-giving, there was a traditional poem, which Patsy herself read from a black book, a ritualized moment of performance and control. The gingerbread house decoration became the evening's centerpiece activity. What Patsy had assembled, pre-made houses, enormous quantities of frosting, industrial-scale candy, was designed to occupy multiple children for extended periods. The visual from photographs shows children seated at tables, decorating intensely. The mess was significant enough that Patsy, in her interview, acknowledges it was quite the cleanup job afterwards. But notice something. The very bulk and scope of this activity, the setup, the execution, the cleanup that would follow, demonstrates a considerable investment of energy and attention at a moment when Patsy was also wrapping some presents and packing for the upcoming trip to Michigan. This pattern of simultaneous hyperactivity, party hosting, gift wrapping, packing, in the days immediately before the incident becomes relevant when we consider the stress load on the household. The party broke up around 8:30 or 9 p.m., according to Patsy's recollection. The family had been in active hosting mode for roughly 4 or 5 hours. The rest of Christmas Day, December 25th. The documentary record then jumps forward 2 days to Christmas morning itself. This is where we begin to see the texture of ordinary family life, the moments that would anchor what people believed they knew about the Ramsey household in the Bay. Hours immediately before the evening that changed everything. John's deposition provides these details. He woke early and turned on the Christmas tree lights. He had prepared a surprise, a bicycle for Patsy, and brought it out from the garage. The children bounded into the parents' bedroom, excited to open their presents. This is a standard Christmas morning ritual, the kind described in thousands of families, but it carries significance in its banality. It establishes normalcy and anticipation. JonBenet requested that John film the present opening, but his camera battery was dead. They had Christmas breakfast, probably pancakes, which John mentions as a family favorite, and something he enjoyed making with the children. JonBenet enjoyed decorating them, he recalls. At some point during the daytime, John left the house to go to the airport, where he did pre-flight checks on the family's airplane, and pre-packed some gifts for their trip to Michigan. He notes that neighborhood kids were in and out of the house during this time, a detail that establishes activity and access to the house throughout the day. JonBenet asked her father to help her ride her new bicycle around the block. Patsy was occupied with remaining tasks, wrapping presents she mentions continuing to work on, packing gifts for the trip, and supervising the children, who were occupied with their new toys. Other neighborhood children, the Colby kids and others, were present and playing with the Ramsey children's new toys. This picture of December 25th is dense with activity and presence. The house was populated. The day was structured around pleasantries and rituals. The evening of December 25th, the White House dinner. In the evening, the Ramseys dressed and prepared to leave for the home of Fleet and Priscilla White, where a Christmas dinner had been planned. According to the official chronology, they left their home around 5:00 or 6 p.m., dinner time-ish, as Patsy described it. The dinner gathering at the Whites included the extended family networks already mentioned, the Whites and their relatives, family members, and friends of both families. Significantly, Patsy notes that Heather White, who had been absent from the December 23rd party because of illness, rallied and was there for dinner at Fleet's house. The evening proceeded without incident. According to the legal documents, nothing out of the ordinary occurred at the party, and the Ramsey family appeared happy. But we must ask, what does a casual observer, present for a dinner party, actually perceive about a family's internal dynamics? A person hosting or attending a social gathering sees public presentation, managed interactions, filtered communication, behavioral performance. They do not see the private negotiations, the family tensions, the conversations that happened before departure, the expectations and anxieties that shape behavior in the household's interior. Okay, spaces. The return home and gift delivery. The family's departure from the White House occurred around 9:30 p.m., but they did not return directly home. Instead, according to the forensic timeline, they stopped to deliver Christmas presents to close friends, specifically to the Walkers and the Steins. These stops extended the return journey by an unknown amount of time, but Patsy's recollection places their arrival home at about 9-ish, something like that, which may mean closer to 9:30 or later, given the stops. According to the official record, the Ramseys arrived at their home approximately 10 p.m. on Christmas night. John parked the family car in the attached garage. He carried JonBenet from the car to her second-level bedroom. She was asleep. The child was placed in her bed between 10 p.m. and 10:15 p.m., according to both John's and Patsy's subsequent statements. At this moment, the ordinary evening ended. JonBenet's placement in bed marks the boundary between the day that anyone could have witnessed and predicted, and the night that no one, by the family's account, could have anticipated. What witnesses observed, and what they could not. The significance of the Christmas party and the subsequent 48 hours is not what occurred in front of witnesses, but what it reveals about the family's navigational patterns, stress levels, social presentation, and the texture of their daily life in the hours immediately before the incident. What the witnesses, the Whites, the Steins, the Ferneys, the Paw family members, Linda Hoffman, and others, observed was a family that appeared happy and functional, children who were engaged and present, Patsy as an energetic, publicity-minded hostess, John as a coordinated father managing logistics and childcare, the household as integrated into a social network of similar families and similar standing. What they could not observe was the interior experience, the stress load of simultaneous preparation for travel, holiday hosting, and whatever personal or domestic currents may have been present, the sleep patterns of the household, the quality of parental relationships, the interactions between the children when adults from outside the family were not present, the conversations that preceded public gatherings, the unspoken expectations and tensions that shape behavior in any family system. This distinction between what can be witnessed and what cannot becomes critical when investigators attempt to reconstruct not just what happened, but why it might have happened. A family can appear happy to outside observers while experiencing internal stress that is invisible to casual inspection. The pattern of preparation and control. What emerges from the detailed record of these days is a picture of considerable activity and, importantly, considerable managerial investment by Patsy. She was organizing a hastily assembled party for 40-plus people, wrapping presents for the trip to Syracuse, Michigan, packing for a family departure the next morning, managing childcare and household logistics, preparing Christmas breakfast, overseeing children's activities and toy distribution, arranging and attending a dinner party, managing the social presentation of the family. This level of activity, in the immediate days before an evening that ended in loss, invites examination of stress, fatigue, and cognitive load. It also reveals something about Patsy's behavioral orientation. She was a woman who engaged in what might be called extensive narrative management, creating experiences, controlling presentation, orchestrating events. John, meanwhile, was pre-checking and preparing the airplane for early departure, managing childcare during daytime hours, coordinating logistics with Patsy, presenting publicly as a husband and father who was engaged and available. These are not indictments. They are observations about how the household was operating in the hours before everything changed. The significance of the unidentified visitor. One detail that recurs across multiple witness accounts deserves closer attention: the unidentified man who appeared at the December 23rd party looking for the Barnhills. This man arrived at a social gathering of approximately 40 people in a home where security was not a priority concern. He was looking for acquaintances of the hosts, the Barnhills, and he was integrated into the party without apparent tension. John let him in and showed him to the Barnhills. Don Paw spoke with him. Linda Hoffman does not recall him. Patsy states she did not see him. This individual was never identified by name. No investigative record confirms who he was, what his relationship to the Barnhills was, or why he was present at the party. In the absence of information, investigators would naturally ask, did anyone in the household recognize him? Did his presence trigger any concern or memory later? Did he have access to the house or observe its layout and routines? The fact that this man remains unidentified decades later in an investigation involving the loss of a child in a house with multiple points of possible vulnerability is itself significant. It illustrates how an open home, social generosity, and the assumption that guests will know one another can create opportunities for access and observation that neither the family nor the guests fully appreciate. The weight of the ordinary. We circle back, then, to the original observation. There is something disquieting about the ordinary in hindsight. The Christmas party of December 23rd happened. Christmas Day passed. An evening at friend's home occurred. A child was placed in bed. Plans were made for a family trip. And then, in the night or early morning hours of December 26th, the ordinary collapsed. What the witnesses observed? A family that appeared happy, children engaged and present, household functioning within normal social parameters, was real as far as it goes. But it was also limited in what it could reveal. Witness testimony, even testimony from friends and close observers, captures a two-dimensional version of family life. The public presentation, not the private experience. The significance of reconstructing this timeline and testimony is not to suggest that what was witnessed was false, but to understand what was not visible to witnesses: the stress, the anticipation, the fatigue, the currents moving beneath the surface of a family engaged in preparation for a transition and a vacation. In the next hours, those invisible currents would become the only thing that mattered.
Okay, so the Ramseys had some things going on during the holidays. I think they had the Christmas party December 23rd, and then Christmas Day on the 25th. The 23rd was a Monday. Let me get my notes out because that's going to be important. Excuse me. Slightly under the weather, but I'll be all right. I just want to grab my notes really quickly. because I had some points that I wanted to make from some other analysis when I was looking at sort of this relationship between Patsy and Linda. And I want to make sure that I'm in the right place. Okay. So they had some going on the 23rd, Christmas Day on the 25th, of course. 23rd is a Monday, 24th is a Tuesday, 25th is a Wednesday, 26th is a Thursday. So this goes into a little bit of the party preparation. I had, I think, 40 something odd guests or something like that. Not sure where that was, whether that was at the Ramsey house at the party, or like the Fleet White Christmas party. I think Fleet White was more, I don't know what he was. I think he was just a few people, his family and just a few friends, I think. I think John and Patsy's Christmas party on the 23rd was a lot more like festive in terms of bringing a lot of people in. So they're dealing with, those sort of like Christmas traditions, Christmas morning, opening presents, getting up, just the preparation for that. JonBenet had a pageant on, I think, the 22nd. Trying to remember, or the 17th or something like that. I think it was the 7th, somewhere around the 17th or the 20th, something like that. And so Patsy was preparing for that during this time. So she's doing a lot of stuff, daytime activities. During Christmas, you had some of the kids over in the neighborhood. Some of the kids that John frowned upon and spoke negatively about. And then you had dinner at the White's house to culminate that evening, to culminate the day of Christmas, bring it to a close. And then you return home around 10 p.m. John said 9 o'clock, but yeah. So what's significant, I think, throughout this document isn't what witnesses saw, sort of like a happy family, but maybe what they couldn't see, I think, is the argument being made and some of the internal stress that Patsy was feeling, the fatigue, and some of the invisible tensions. One of the key points was the activity load, the intense activity load. Patsy simultaneously hosting a large Christmas party on the 23rd. That was a Christmas party where Fleet White had made a call out, I guess, trying to call for medicine for his mom in Aspen, Colorado. Police showed up to the door, or somebody called 911 by mistake. Police showed up to the door. Susan Stein opened it, wouldn't let him in, acting funny, acting suspicious. But Patsy was simultaneously, she's hosting a large Christmas party on the 23rd, wrapping presents, packing for the Michigan trip, managing the children, and trying to maintain, just as she goes out. Patsy was one who liked to get out, and so maintaining that sort of public image for herself and for John. I can't make my husband look silly in public. It's the kind of person Patsy was. So it's a lot of stress. As in terms of that person, you're always on, right? There's a lot of cognitive load that comes with being on. If you see that type of person, they'll usually collapse in bed, after the day is over. They're just tired. I think the second thing was it seemed like there was a happy family. You had engaged children. They're happy. They're involved with school and out extracurricular activities and all such as that. But you kind of, what happens is you miss the stress of what happens, when you are overloaded with stress, sleep patterns, relationship tensions, and in terms of relationship tensions, things that you miss that as a parent who is exhausted, things that you don't see, that come up that you're not aware of or that you don't put time into, because you hope that the problem sort of resolves itself and goes away on its own if there is a problem. It's like, those of you who have children, you may see as your kids get older, they become a little bit more like they become a little bit snippier with one another. And depending on the age, the oldest one might become more snippier than the younger one, because the younger one is still trying to learn how to, express themselves. And so they kind of get snippy with each other, but the oldest one just, kind of loses patience, and you have to reel him back in and say, hey, be nice to your brother or something like that. And so some of these things can go by the wayside and be marked as, insignificant if you have 20 million other things to worry about. I mean, for example, I got to go to work. As a parent, I have to go to work. I have to deal with my spouse. I have to deal with how I'm feeling in my body if I'm feeling sick. I just don't have time to deal or focus on your bull crap. Go sit down, play together, stop this arguing and bickering and this mess. But mama, he did this. I don't care. Be quiet. And, that sort of forces sometimes kids to learn how to handle situations on their own, learning how to get along on their own, and learning how to sort of play fair, or learning how to fight fair is what it might teach them. So, but it just depends on how you handle that. Like I said, some things can go by the wayside and not be addressed because, as a parent, the way that you set the tone, the kids might feel like, oh, well, mom is not going to handle it or dad's not going to handle it. I'm going to have to handle it myself, and if I handle it in this way, they'll call me down. So I'll just handle it in another way. Because kids are known to be sneaky and clever like that. And when you told them no, and they'll find another way to sneak. And once you catch them doing that, then they'll try to, to justify that or something like that. And, you'll have to have a conversation about being very specific. So there's all these scenarios that are happening in the household as a parent, especially somebody like Patsy, who typically deals with the children by herself. We know that John, on Christmas, he went away for 3 hours to take care of the plane. He did not stay home with his family. He said, you know what, I got to go home and take care of and get this plane ready to go. But that left Patsy under a great deal of stress because, Patsy was probably wrapping gifts by herself for quite some time as John was, doing his thing. He's got company parties that he's doing. He's traveling a little bit, and he may not have been home as much for the holidays as maybe Patsy would have liked. Patsy's not going to complain. She thinks that this is what mothers and stay-at-home moms do. They just thug it out and just endure as a good soldier and don't complain and be grateful that John is even providing this. And you should, if one partner is handling one thing and you're the other partner that's handling the other thing, you're teammates. And so you just kind of work together and kind of do your thing. But I think what you miss in that, and as adults, we're never going to know everything. We're never going to be perfect in our decision making because we don't know everything. And so there are decisions that we think about today in our older age that we probably wouldn't have made 20 years prior. And you say, man, if, at 55, you say, man, if I when I was 30, if I would have known, this and that, I would have made a different decision. And so Patsy, probably would have made a decision to say something to John like, hey, John, I need you home. I need you to be more involved. And if John pushed back, she would say, no, I really need you here. I understand that. Or we need more help, or we need something, I think would have been the case. But hindsight is 20/20. And you don't really say anything or know to say anything until you experience the outcome or the mistakes that happen with your decision. And you say, man, maybe I should have said something more. Maybe I should have been more vocal. Maybe I should have put a stop to this more. And you didn't. And sometimes those outcomes are extremely detrimental to the continuation of your family dynamic and your structure. But you didn't know that. You wouldn't have known that, right? And that's why I think it's one of the funny things I think is how Patsy was reacting. I know we talk about the fact that Patsy she was just so distraught in everything, but when Patsy got off the phone, you know, I say like she just went into a different mode, right? And I think part of her going into this different mode was, you know, sort of like this maternal guilt of, dang it, I should have made better decisions, you know, to maybe heat off this kidnapping or what have you, or, you know, heat off any issues. I should have protected JonBenet more. You know, had I known this was going to happen, I would have tried to make sure that I was more diligent in making sure the doors were locked around the house, or just, I don't know, whatever happened. I mean, anything could have happened that she could have been, you know, just regretful about. That she said I could have done a better job as a mom in protecting JonBenet, and I wish I'd have done that. So, to kind of close my points before I kind of get to where I really want to get to, you have maybe possibly discussion about the unidentified visitor. An unnamed man appears on December 23rd at the party looking for the Barnhills. And they talk about this in the interview. Oh, he showed up. I don't know who he was, blah, blah, blah. You know, at the December 23rd party. And he's looking for the Barnhills. And I think he was led in by John. And I think he maybe spoke to Don Paul, but was never formally identified. And so maybe that raised some questions about who had access to the home, and they might have observed about what they might have observed about its layout. But the thing about it is, y'all deemed him safe enough to let him in the house. So that's on y'all. So if anybody's picker is off, it's yours, because he went through John, and he went through the father, and he went through the father-in-law. So if anybody's picker is off on that, that's your problem. But just thinking about the Christmas party timeline, here's the discrepancy that I'm kind of looking to highlight. I'm pulling from one of the previous videos that I didn't finish. Was you try to understand what exactly was going on during this time frame, during this time period. And one of the things that I was stuck on was the garrote, and the fact that it came from Patsy's art supply. And who could have come in contact with that? So one of my questions as I was researching that I was trying to resolve was whether or not any of these sources, like the interviews and all such as that, sort of discuss if Patsy recognized her paintbrush handle being broken prior to the incident on the 26th. So it's kind of a similar question to the pineapple, in that we're wanting to know, when exactly did you recognize that maybe the pineapple bowl was there? And we try to sort of get close to say, was it on the table before you guys left to go to the Christmas party at Fleet White's house? And I think her answer was like, no, it wasn't there. If it was there, I'd have cleaned it up. Great. So Patsy, I'll go ahead and say it. Patsy does this thing to where Patsy says, if I would have seen it, I would have disposed of it properly or done the proper thing to it, or, you know, got rid of it immediately. Okay, that's fair. So when we look at it, in August of 2000, Patsy's in her interview, and investigators do question her about, you know, the contents of her paint tray, which had been moved to the basement prior to Christmas. When directly asked if she would have had any brushes in that tray that were broken or damaged, Patsy is going to reply and say no. They were all pretty new. So she had just got these. You know, she just got these. So she bought these at a time, these weren't old. She bought these at a time where they were brand new. She can keep her eyes on them. They're important to her. This is not like these paintbrushes have you know, we've had these for some time, and they've just been sitting around the house. And so, if they get broken, they get broken. I don't really care. So these are something new. It's like when you buy some new shoes, you're going to keep an eye on the new shoes, because it's like, man, I'm not really trying to scuff my sneakers. I'm not really trying to have anybody step on my sneakers. I'm not really trying to crease my sneakers. You take care of them more because they're brand new, right? And so you try not to lose them because they're important. So you keep your eye on them a lot. She said, no, they were all pretty new. And when pressed further if she recalled any broken paintbrushes, she reiterated, no, not that I recall. And she added that if she had broken one, she would have thrown it away. Okay. So the same thing that she kind of said with the pineapple, if there was a bowl sitting there with pineapple in it that nobody was eating, I would have put that in the dirty dishes. I would have picked it up and moved it in. I would have cleaned that up. So if somebody was using if I had a broken paintbrush handle or something like that, I would not just try to thug it out and work through it and be like, oh, well, I just really love this set and the feel of this paintbrush, and you really can't get this anywhere anymore, so I'm just going to keep it. Patsy would not do that. She said she would throw it away. So basically, if it's broken, I didn't break it. Somebody else broke it. Must have been broken when I wasn't around, is the idea. In some of the sort of like the supplemental reports from the police team, an investigative memo details that the wooden handle used from the garrote found on JonBenet matched broken portions of the paintbrush handle found in the paint tray in the basement. The memo notes that the paint tray and its contents belonged to the Ramsey, specifically mentioning that Patsy enjoyed painting as a hobby. In the Wolf versus Ramsey judicial decision, the court acknowledged that the paintbrush used to make the garrote was found in the paint tray in the boiler room area of the basement. The text notes that the plaintiff, Wolf, theorizes Miss Ramsey fashioned or made this thing from one of her own paintbrushes, though the court also noted that the Ramseys lacked the skill to tie the specific knot used. I disagree, but whatever. In 98, when interviewing John Ramsey, John confirmed that the tray of artists' brushes shown to him in the photographs likely belonged to Patsy and JonBenet. That's another thing that surprised me, because he said not just Patsy, but he said those paintbrushes belonged to Patsy and JonBenet. And so now you have two people, because that's very specific, because now you have two people that are responsible. This is not just Patsy's, who is a solid or a very logical, mature human being, and doesn't get frustrated or easily angered over these paintbrushes. But now, and she's a 40-year-old woman, so she's got the maturity to say, you know what, we got the money, we'll just go buy something else. But you have a JonBenet Ramsey who is less experienced in sort of being patient and might be more protective and possessive of her paintbrushes, especially as it pertains to what belongs to her and her mom. So there's a bond there. These paintbrushes belong to me and my mom. Nobody else can touch these. Nobody else should be touching these. So if mom comes down and sees her paintbrushes broken, it might be a problem. But if I, in my 6-year-old mind, come down and see these paintbrushes broken, that's going to be a problem. And I might say something about it. I might press somebody about it. If they get broken for any reason and I see you break them, I might throw a fit. And one of the fits to where, you got to go buy, a new set of paintbrushes right now to replace that old one. And you still might not calm that kid down, because they might look at the new paintbrush and be like, oh, but it doesn't look like the last one. Oh, but it doesn't have the yellow mark that I made on it. Oh, but it doesn't feel the same way, blah, blah, blah. And so you're trying to calm her down. But John makes it seem, so there's another thing another layer, because not only do Patsy and JonBenet work together, or they spend a lot of time together artistically and creatively with respect to the pageants, if that ain't enough, they paint together. I'm trying to figure out where it is that John or Patsy and Burke paint together. I might have to ask that question. So John says this belongs to Patsy and JonBenet, as they liked to paint together. However, he stated that his knowledge of a broken paintbrush being used in the crime came only from what he heard in the media. So I tried to press in a little bit further to understand, okay, when exactly did Patsy notice that the paintbrushes or the handle was broken? When could it have gotten damaged? And so from what I can tell in the interviews, the last time Patsy painted, she talked about this in the 2000 August interview, where the investigators asked her directly when she last remembered using the paint set. Patsy replied, "Oh God, probably that fall sometime." So basically the fall of 96, basically that fall. And so that's part of the course, you're using it all that time. She explained that she had signed up for an art class at the University of Colorado that started with oils and switched to acrylics. She was adamant that once the materials were moved to the basement, she did not touch them again, stating once it was moved to the basement, no, she never hauled them back up to paint. In 1998, in the 1998 interview, Patsy confirmed the specific logistics of why and when the art supplies were moved. She explained that she normally kept her painting materials in the butler's kitchen area on the main floor, back by the spiral staircase. So basically, that's kind of telling you that Patsy spends a lot of time painting over by the butler's kitchen. So she's familiar with that area, the spiral staircase. There's a lot of activity that the Ramseys do in that area. They park their cars in the garage. They come through and they come through that door, the garage door. They're at the spiral staircase in the butler's kitchen, basically, right? They spend a lot of time in that area. Patsy paints over there, okay? And that's I don't know if they had curtains by that butler's kitchen door, but, there was nothing in her that made her feel unsafe about being next to, a big window. But that's just a side note. And so she explained that she normally kept the painting materials in the butler's kitchen area on the main floor. However, because they needed that specific space to set up coat racks for the Christmas party, she asked her housekeeper, Linda Hoffman Pugh, to move the items. Patsy stated Linda did. I asked her to take them to the bedroom or down here in the basement. When asked when this occurred, Patsy clarified, well, she did it prior to the party on the 23rd because we wanted to hang coats here. And so Linda, well, let me get finished so it'll make sense. So Linda, sort of some of her activity at the Ramsey house during Christmas week. In the same 1998 interview, Patsy Ramsey provided a detailed breakdown of Linda Hoffman Pugh's schedule that confirms that Linda, I think, was working Monday. Her work routine was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on a weekly basis. So on Monday, December 23rd, Patsy confirmed that Linda was present on this day. She noted that she was there Monday because she helped me get ready for the party. And in the 1997 April interview, Patsy elaborated that Linda and her daughter helped me all day getting ready for the party, and she stayed through Santa Claus. So basically in 1997, Patsy's saying that, again, another thing that her and JonBenet are doing together, they're setting up for the Christmas party. Linda is helping on the 23rd. Typically, Linda's just going to stand. She's going to clean and clean the house and make sure it's good. But today, she's helping with the Christmas party. JonBenet is also present, helping with the Christmas party. Where is Burke? So, Wednesday, December 25th, which was Christmas, Patsy confirmed Linda did not work on this day, of course, stating that she didn't come Wednesday because it was Christmas. Friday the 27th, so Linda, I guess, from what I can see in the supplemental report from Linda Arndt, January 8th of 1997, the supplemental report. On December 24th, Patsy told, Detective Arndt that she had a Christmas party at her home on December the 23rd. Linda Hoffman Pugh was supposed to clean up from this party on the morning of December 24th. Linda Hoffman had phoned Patsy on the morning of December 24th. Linda asked Patsy if she could borrow some money. Patsy said yes. Patsy told Detective Arndt that she loaned Linda Hoffman Pugh some money in the past. And so Linda Hoffman Pugh phones Patsy again on the afternoon of the 24th. She's crying and she said she needed to borrow $2,000. And so I think in the book, The Death of Innocence, Patsy said it was $2,500. And so I think they said that Patsy was going to put it on the counter. So I'm digging a little bit deeper on this because I'm trying to just reconfirm the schedule, because I think not only was Linda scheduled to come pick up the money on Friday, but I think she was scheduled to work that day as well. So I think she was supposed to be there anyway. So in 1998, they were having a conversation with Patsy, not about like Linda Hoffman picking up the check, but sort of on changing of the bed linens. And this is what kind of stuck out to me as I was reading this and thinking back. They were having a different conversation about the bed linens. And when those sheets would get washed in the event that JonBenet used the restroom on herself. So when detectives tried to pin down when the sheets on JonBenet's bed were last washed, Patsy explained Linda's schedule. She said she stated that Linda came Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Patsy noted that Linda worked Monday, December 23rd to help with the party. Did not work the 25th because it's Christmas, but she was going to come on Friday. She was going to come on Friday after they had left. They're leaving on Thursday. Linda Hoffman Pugh will be there Friday, so they'll be gone for sure. She was going to come by Friday after they were gone. And then in the police report filed by Detective Linda Arndt regarding the morning of December 26th, she records that Patsy provides a specific time for the arrival. The report states that Patsy tells Linda Arndt that Linda Hoffman Pugh was scheduled to be at the Ramsey's home on Friday morning, December 27th at 0900 hours, 9 a.m. in the morning. So it suggests that Linda Hoffman Pugh would not be the criminal then. Linda Hoffman Pugh is not the intruder, because you first told her that you're going to give her $2,000, $2,500. She's going to come. That's all she needs, because she's behind on rent. There's some issues with the rent, to what you're telling us. And she's going to be there Friday anyway. She's got $2,500 waiting for her. She's going to be there Friday anyway. She knows how to get in. She comes in and the check is going to be there waiting for her. Why does she need to break in and kidnap JonBenet? Why does she need to go through all this ruckus to kidnap JonBenet? It would have just been as easy if this was Linda's doing. It would have just been easy and they wanted to collect some money or try to rob something or whatever. I'm pretty sure the Ramseys had a lot of valuables in the home. It would have been just as easy to let the Ramseys leave and then let somebody break in. And Linda would be like, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened. It happened after I left. And you know, it's easy because I can just let anybody in. If that was really what Linda was going to do, she would have been unopposed in the robbery because you're not there. So if Linda really wanted to do this, she would have just waited till you left and just took the easier route and just took precious goods from the house and pawned them. Made her money that way, took the $2,000 free cash and then pawned everything else. That's easy money. Okay. In the civil lawsuit, Linda Hoffman Pugh versus Patricia and John Ramsey, Patricia Ramsey and John Ramsey, the complainant quotes the complaint quotes the Ramsey book, The Death of Innocence, regarding the financial loan you mentioned here. Patsy said Linda had called her distraught and in tears because her sister, who was her landlord, was going to evict her over past due rent. Patsy agreed to the loan of $2,000, referenced elsewhere as $2,500, and intended to leave the check on the kitchen counter. The book states Linda would let herself in the house and pick it up while we were going for the holidays. So Linda ain't even have to fight for it. It's right here on the kitchen counter. So if Linda was going to be involved in this, it probably wouldn't happen. Before I get back to my main point and close this out, so Patsy corroborates that JonBenet would paint with her in the butler's kitchen. They called it the lower kitchen. They said they turned it into a studio for the purpose of them painting together. She said JonBenet would paint with me. During these times, Burke was typically playing video games or something like that, something that he wanted to do. And as you know, in 2016 on Dr. Phil, Burke was like, I never felt left out. It was totally fine. Me and my mom spent a lot of time together. And sort of to back that up, she said she went to all his games. And then she said she used her artistic skills to support his involvement with the Boy Scouts in 1993 when Burke's troop wanted to participate in the Parade of Lights. She came up with a design for a float made to look like the good ship Lollipop and helped organize its construction so Burke and the Scouts could march. In the same 2000 interview, Patsy detailed how she managed her time to ensure Burke wasn't ignored while JonBenet had lessons. She explained that while JonBenet was in tap class at the rec center, she asked around and found a basketball coach named Howard to work with Burke in the gym for 45 minutes so he wouldn't just be hanging out waiting for his sister. I think she also mentioned, kind of helping Burke and his friends with homework. I think that was later on, though, after JonBenet had died. And then she put a point in the book. I think she put a photo insert with the caption under it that said Patsy and Burke cooking, which reads, making pancakes with Burke. And so the main point that I was, and I don't know, I just love to go through these, but the main point that I was looking at was, can we strategically lay down a timeline to understand when exactly Patsy's paintbrush was broken. And it looks like, from what we can tell, the paintbrush was probably broken sometime after the 23rd. So you have the 24th and the 25th. They don't know of anybody being in their home on the 24th. So you would think that maybe the intruder would sneak in at some point and try to create the garrote. But it doesn't have to be. They could have had it created prior to, just minutes before. But it might tell me that the garrote was formed in the basement. And it was probably formed for a purpose. That's what's interesting. If it was formed in the basement, we don't know why it was formed. Like, what prompted? That means if the garrote was formed in the basement and somebody brought rope or whatever, because it's formed for a purpose, right? If you're the intruder, you got rope. Just tie her hands and her legs up. You don't even need to break a paintbrush. Just tie her up and leave. But the toggle was made for a purpose. The toggle was made for something. That's what it looks like. The toggle was made for the intent to do what it was supposed to do. And, I'm pretty sure there are other use cases for the toggle rope. Maybe you want to connect it to something and pull, and make sure that, when you pull, the rope kind of, tightens around whatever you're pulling. And you could be pulling a wagon. You could be pulling, a bag or, something that kind of helps you pull things along. But we do know that the toggle rope was intentional. Probably made that night. Because why would the criminal make it during the daytime? Well, I don't know. Because they knew what they were. Whenever you made it, you knew what you were going to do. You made that for a purpose. You just got to figure out how. But I think that's everything. I'll try to think about this more. And we'll try to work through this at another time. But thanks for watching. And take care of yourself.